Welcome back. You're still watching us here on The Breakfast Show, and it's time now to take a look at the major events that made headlines in our Egyptian newspapers. And we're very much delighted this morning to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Mohamed el Shazly, member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Now, let's start off with Al Ahram's major headline that reads, Morsi calls for establishing a real coalition between Egypt and Russia. Putin says enhancing political, economic, and cultural ties and increasing the number of tourists is a priority. President Morsi returned home on Friday after a two-day visit to Russia, during which he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a joint press conference in a Russian city of Sochi, President Morsi and the Russian president called for a ceasefire in Syria and the launch of negotiations between the regime and fighters. Both presidents also said that they wanted Syria to find its own solution to the crisis without external intrusion. Morsi added that Egypt and Russia could establish more prominent ties than before. And topping the agenda of the meetings were, of course, means of enhancing bilateral ties. We have a special report on President Mohamed Morsi's visit to Russia, and we'll be right back for His Excellency Ambassador Mohamed el Shazly to comment on it. Stay with us.
Russia and Egypt called for a ceasefire in Syria as quickly as possible. Russian President Vladimir Putin made the announcement on Friday after a meeting with his Egyptian counterpart Mohamed Morsi. Following the meeting in the Black City resort of Sochi, where the 2014 Winter Olympics Games will be held, the Russian president said that Russia and Egypt support a ceasefire in Syria as soon as possible and the launch of negotiations between the regime and the rebels. The two leaders said they wanted Syria to find its own solution to the crisis, now in its third year without external intrusion. Along with China, Russia is the only world power to have stayed allied with the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, vetoing 3 rounds of UN Security Council resolutions against his government. Russia has though repeatedly called for an end to the conflict, which started in March 2011 and has killed more than 70,000 people, according to UN figures. For his part, Foreign Minister Mohammed Kamel Amr denied that Russia had refused Egypt joining the BRICS. Amr said that Egypt seeks taking part in international economic gatherings, especially BRICS, when its economy reaches the required level.
Welcome back. Your Excellency, Ambassador Mohamed el Shazly, now, of course, President Morsi and President Vladimir Putin discussed bilateral relations, means of increasing investments, means of bringing more Russian tourists to the country, and all this is natural. But what caught my attention is discussing the issue of Syria, especially that Egypt's stance regarding Syria is totally the contrary or opposing Russia's stance to what's happening in Syria. How do you comment on that?
I don't think that necessarily we can say that we are on opposing sides vis-a-vis Syria. What we want in Syria is to preserve Syria from destruction, preserve Syria from external manipulation of the situation there. We have what is happening in Syria is that all the regional forces are involved there. You know, you have Turkey is involved, you have Iran is involved, you have Israel is involved, the Europeans, the Americans, and these have different agendas, so they are destroying the country between them. What we are calling for is to have a Syrian solution for the Syrian problem. What is happening in Syria is that it's become a partisan situation where, for instance, a couple of months ago, the son of one of the Chechen leaders has been killed in Syria because he was fighting against
But sir,
President Assad.
How do you in general comment on President Morsi's visit to Russia? How do you see it in general?
In general, yes. I think this is a very important visit in the sense that Russia is one of the most potent international players. It's a permanent member of the Security Council. It is a bastion of technology and science. It is an aborted relationship and a wasted investment for Egypt. We had a strategic relationship with Russia, and a strategic relationship is built brick over brick. What we have done is we have destroyed many bricks that have been built. We had a very important cooperation in building the High Dam, and this gave Egypt a big expertise in building dams. And now we are speaking about Israel helping Ethiopia build dams. Israel has never built a dam. Egypt has built a dam in cooperation with Russia. We had, even on the cultural level, we had, our ballet troupe, our opera troupe, our philharmonic.
University professors going
university
there,
professors. We had a very wide and a very important aspect is armaments. Egypt used to rely on Russian armaments. Yes. In 1955, we celebrated breaking the Western monopoly of armaments to Egypt by an arms deal with the then Soviet Union. We have returned after 60 years to Western monopoly of arms to Egypt. We have to diversify our arms resources, in the sense that our opponent, Israel, is a staunch ally of the United States. If we need weapons to fight Israel, America will not give us. We have the example of India, who's also his main opponent is Pakistan, who is a staunch ally of the United States. The Indians, they have Western weapons, but they have, in addition, Russian weapons. They bought an aircraft carrier from Russia. They depend on major Russian aircraft, war aircraft, and therefore they have secured themselves against a monopoly of one part to their arms.
This is very true. We are still with Al-Ahram, and the front page of Al-Ahram actually reported the unfortunate clashes that took place yesterday during the protests that were the reforming the judiciary protest. The Al-Ahram newspaper reported clashes between the Brotherhood and the Black Bloc in the Friday of reforming the judiciary, and the same issue was also a banner in Al-Masri Al-Yawm, which reported blood and bird shots in the protest of slaughtering the judiciary. Mickey says to the newspaper, "I will resign if they pass the draft law of amending the judiciary authority." Clashes between opponents and supporters of the president continued into the night in Cairo on Friday. The rally centered on an aspect of the country's political polarization, the courts, of course. Backers of President Mohamed Morsi said that the judiciary is infused with former regime loyalists who are blocking his policies, while opponents fear Islamists want to take over the courts as well. And Islamist lawmakers have announced plans to begin debating a bill regulating the judiciary, presenting it as aimed at ensuring the independence of courts that they contend are dominated by supporters of former President Hosni Mubarak. However, opponents believe that they aim to remove judges and install new ones who support their agenda. How do you comment on yesterday's clashes and also the demands of the protesters who were calling for what they call the purge of the judiciary?
Let me first of all say that I'm dismayed at the partisanship of how the situation is viewed. You have, on the one hand, those who are calling for the purge of the judiciary, and on the other hand, those who are calling to protect the judges against the slaughter of the judges. Yes. What I see is that, those who are condemning, those who are demonstrating against the judiciary today have applauded under the pretext that you should not intimidate the judiciary. These same people have applauded those who have put iron chains around the entrance to the office of the prosecutor general. They have applauded the young judiciary who have entered the office of the prosecutor general and attacked him and forced him under coercion to sign a resignation. You cannot have it this way. You either respect the dignity of the judiciary or you do not. But you cannot
play it your way.
Play it two ways. What Egypt is suffering, I think, today from is that we all were against the overgrowth of the executive vis-a-vis the other forces. What I see today is a problem in Egypt is the overgrowth of the judiciary over the other forces. The judiciary, they have abolished the legislative. They are standing against the executive. The three powers, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, should work in harmony, not as if they are enemies. You cannot have a state divided between the three powers. You have a state to function, there have to be a balance, not an imbalance. One of the imbalances, I think, which is, I really cannot understand.
And how do things turn that violent, Your Excellency? I mean, things turned, I was walking in the street, I was trying to go back home and I couldn't because the road was cut off. I saw the tear gas, I saw the people running everywhere. How do things escalate to this extent?
Because we do not have a trust in a fair judge. Not only, you know, vis-a-vis the judiciary and the executive and the legislative. Even in football, when you have a match, you ask for a foreign referee. You have today a deplorable situation between the students and the professors in the universities. Who has the power or the moral authority to solve that? It is solved only by violence.
Yes.
You have every sector of society today, there is a schism between the Muslims and the Christians.
Unfortunately, the clashes were extended also to Alexandria.
To everywhere.
And
you don't have a fair judge who is respected by everybody to arbitrate between us in conflict.
Actually, as I said, Al Masri reported also that clashes in Cairo and Alexandria, and that it said that the Black Bloc burned 3 buses belonging to the Brotherhood. We have more details regarding this event, and we'll be right back to discuss more.
Scores were hurt on Friday in clashes after activists and Islamists rallying outside the central Cairo court demanding judicial reform clashed with each other. The fighting erupted near the iconic Tahrir Square, roughly 0.5 kilometers from where the Islamists had staged their rally, with each other